They say he who finds a wife finds a treasure. But what happens when that treasure turns against you? When the one you promised your heart to becomes the very person who destroys it? Today we explore two chilling cases of wives who turned deadly, where love hid betrayal and the homes they once shared became places of fear. Hi guys, welcome back to Crimson Rift Africa, where we uncover the most disturbing, often overlooked stories from across the continent. If you're new here, welcome. Today's journey isn't just a retelling of true crime, it's a confrontation with the parts of our society we often try to ignore. The shadows behind closed doors and the secrets that can turn love into danger. Disclaimer: this video is for educational and storytelling purposes. All information presented comes from publicly available online sources. It discusses real-life crimes and sensitive topics. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Let's dive into today's cases. To everyone who knew them, Jackie and Beau Shroyer seemed like the perfect couple. They lived in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, a quiet community built on family values and faith. Beau was known for his warmth, his devotion to God, and his deep love for his children. Jackie, his wife, shared his passion for missionary work. Together, they dreamed of raising their 5 children in a home filled with purpose. In 2023, that dream took them far from Minnesota, across the ocean to Angola, Africa. They joined SIM USA, serving in mission, pouring their energy into church planting, teaching, and community work. Friends back home followed their journey through updates on social media, proud to see a family living out their faith. To outsiders, they represented the very best of American missionaries, dedicated, faithful, and united. But behind the smiling photos and hopeful posts, tensions were beginning to rise. Beau Carlton Shroyer was born on April 29, 1980, in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, the only son of Carl and Sherry Shroyer. He grew up in the quiet town of Gray Eagle, Minnesota, surrounded by the forests, lakes, and small-town rhythms that would shape his character. From an early age, Beau was drawn to nature. He spent countless hours exploring the outdoors, fishing, hiking, and observing the wildlife around him. In school, Beau was thoughtful, kind, and dependable. He wasn't the most outspoken student, but teachers and peers respected him for his integrity and quiet strength. He had a close circle of friends and often participated in volunteer activities and community events, reflecting a strong sense of responsibility that would guide him through life. During his teenage years, Beau's connection to the outdoors deepened. He spent long hours hiking, fishing, and learning survival skills, often sharing his knowledge with friends and neighbors. His parents remember a boy who was reflective, patient, and curious, a young man building a strong moral compass and a deep empathy for those around him. After graduating from Long Prairie Gray Eagle High School, Beau pursued higher education at St. Cloud State University, earning a bachelor's degree in biology. While his studies reflected a love of the natural world, his heart leaned towards service. Following college, he trained at Alexandria Technical College for a career in law enforcement, seeking a way to help and protect his community. In 2013, Beau joined the Detroit Lakes Police Department as a student resource officer. Later, Beau briefly pursued real estate, bringing the same integrity and dedication to his work. But beneath the surface, he was searching for a greater purpose. Friends and family say his faith and desire to serve others guided every decision. This path would eventually lead him beyond Minnesota, to a calling that would take him to Africa and set the stage for a mission that would change his life forever. Beau Shroyer met Jacqueline Jackie in the early 2000s at their church community in Minnesota. Jacqueline Jackie Shroyer was born on May 23, 1993, in Cleveland, Ohio. She grew up in a close-knit family with her parents, Britt and Patty, along with her older brother Britt, sister Stacy, and her twin sister Megan. Though her early childhood was spent in Ohio, her family eventually settled in Detroit Lakes, Minnesota, a small town where community, faith, and family values were central to daily life. From a young age, Jackie displayed a sense of responsibility and compassion that set her apart. She became actively involved in her church, participating in youth groups and volunteering in community service projects. Her parents encouraged her to help others and instilled in her a strong work ethic. During her teenage years, Jackie excelled academically, balancing schoolwork with extracurricular activities. She was a dedicated member of her high school swim team, where her discipline and perseverance became evident to coaches and teammates alike. She also volunteered at local shelters and assisted with church events, demonstrating a commitment to community service that mirrored the values she had been raised with. After graduating from high school, Jackie pursued higher education at Bucknell University in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. There she majored in geography and economics, while continuing her athletic pursuits on the university's swim team. Jackie's upbringing, education, and early experiences built a foundation rooted in faith, determination, and service. Values that would later guide her choices and ambitions as she stepped into adulthood and eventually crossed paths with Beau Shroyer. Though their lives had been separate until that point, Beau and Jackie quickly discovered they shared more than just a church community. By the mid-2000s, Beau and Jackie's connection had grown into a committed partnership. Surrounded by friends, family, and their church community, they took the next step and married, beginning a new chapter in their lives. Soon the couple began building a family. Over the years, they welcomed 5 children. By 2021, Beau and Jackie felt a calling that would take them far from the familiar streets of Minnesota. Guided by their faith and desire to serve, the Shroyers made the life-altering decision to move their family to Lubango, Angola. Their goal was clear: to bring hope, faith, and support to a community in need, spreading the message of Christianity and compassion where resources were scarce. The transition was immense. The Shroyers traded the comforts of home for a modest residence in Lubango with limited electricity, running water, and few modern amenities. Yet they embraced the challenge, seeing it as part of their mission. Beau, with his calm and steady presence, focused on community outreach and supporting the village's safety and structure, while Jackie immersed herself in teaching, outreach, and building relationships within the local community. Life in Angola was demanding. Days were long, and the challenges were constant, from extreme heat to limited supplies. But the family remained committed to their work. Their 5 children adapted as best they could. For Beau and Jackie, every obstacle reinforced their faith and purpose, and the Shroyers became a familiar, trusted presence in the community. For a time, it seemed like the fulfillment of everything they had worked for. Yet as their mission drew to a close, unforeseen tensions and choices would begin to emerge, ultimately setting the stage for a tragedy that would shock both communities they had called home. By late 2024, the Shroyers' mission in Angola was approaching its planned conclusion. After several years of service, the family prepared to return to Minnesota. Friends and colleagues later recalled that Jackie had expressed a desire to remain in Angola, while Beau focused on wrapping up the mission and returning home. Jackie's priorities began to diverge. According to investigators, this difference in vision would become a key element in the tragic events that followed. In the weeks leading up to October 2024, the Shroyers were preparing for departure. Supplies were being packed, farewells were being made, and the family was looking forward to returning to the United States. But Jackie Shroyer was no longer devoted to her husband. She had begun an affair with a man named Bernardino Elias, Beau's trusted security guard and friend. What started as a secret relationship soon shifted into something darker. This was the reason Jackie didn't want to leave Angola with Beau. She wanted to stay with Bernardino. Their bond had deepened, and what began as stolen moments of passion eventually turned into whispered conversations about murder. The plan was simple in design but cold in execution. Bernardino would assemble the right people to carry it out. Two men were chosen: Isolino, Vin Diesel, Caillou, and Gelson Ramos. Jackie herself played a key role. She would help lure Beau into the trap. The weapon of choice was chillingly symbolic. The killers would use a knife that Beau had once gifted Bernardino, turning a token of trust into the very tool of betrayal. On October 25, 2024, the plan was set in motion. A car was staged on a remote roadside near Humpata, its hood open as though it had broken down. Beau received word of the stranded vehicle, and being the kind of man who never turned down a call for help, agreed to drive out. Jackie insisted on going with him, masking her intentions behind the role of a supportive wife. When they arrived, the trap snapped shut. Jackie slipped away into the brush, pretending she needed a restroom break. Beau walked toward the car, unsuspecting. That was the moment the attacker struck. He was forced back into his own SUV. The knife slashed again and again, the very object he had once given in friendship, now the weapon of his death. By the time the attackers fled, Beau was slumped in his seat, fatally wounded. Authorities later pieced it all together: the staged breakdown, Jackie's affair, Bernardino's betrayal, and the hired killers who carried out the ambush. What at first looked like a senseless roadside tragedy was, in reality, the result of calculated plotting and cold-blooded deception, engineered by those Beau trusted most. Friends and colleagues struggled to reconcile the man they knew, a devoted father, husband, and officer of the law, with the sudden and violent circumstances of his death. In the days following Beau Shroyer's death, authorities in Angola launched a full-scale investigation. Local law enforcement, assisted by international contacts, quickly focused on the circumstances surrounding his murder. Suspicion soon fell on individuals close to the family, including Jackie and other alleged accomplices. Jackie was taken into custody in connection with the murder of her husband Beau, along with 3 alleged accomplices, including Bernardino, while another suspect reportedly fled, prompting an international search. The shocking news reverberated back in Minnesota, where friends, church members, and colleagues struggled to comprehend how a family so devoted to faith and service could be torn apart so violently. The Shroyer children, all under 18, were placed in the care of close relatives, receiving ongoing support from SIM USA and local church counselors. Investigators uncovered allegations of premeditation and coordination, with motives tied to personal relationships. In February 2025, Jackie was formally charged as a co-author of the murder, while the Angolan legal system prepared for a complex trial. U.S. authorities ensured she received due process, while local and international lawyers navigated the intricacies of Angola's civil law system. Evidence, including witness testimony, forensic findings, and communications, would form the core of the prosecution's case. The tragedy deeply affected both the local and international communities. SIM USA emphasized the well-being of the children and integrity of the investigation, while friends, family, and church members rallied around the children to help them cope with grief and uncertainty. The case also sparked reflection within missionary and faith-based circles about safety, accountability, and support for families serving abroad. Beau Shroyer was remembered as a devoted father, husband and servant to his community, leaving behind a legacy tragically cut short. May his soul rest in peace. Our thoughts and deepest condolences go out to his children, family, and all who loved him during this difficult time. It was a quiet night in Cape Town. Talib Peterson, one of the city's most beloved musicians, returned home after visiting his mother, unaware that danger was already inside his house. Someone he trusted was setting a plan in motion, one that would turn his world upside down. Talib was caught completely off guard. And then, in a shocking twist, the betrayal came from someone he thought he loved. Talib Peterson was born on April 15, 1950, in the heart of Cape Town, South Africa, in the vibrant and culturally rich neighborhood of District 6. He grew up in a community that celebrated music, with street performers, choirs, and cultural festivals, which likely nurtured his creativity. From a very young age, he showed a natural talent for music. Talib reportedly performed for the first time around the age of 6 or 7, not just at home, but publicly at local events like the Cape Carnival. As Talib grew into his teenage years, his passion for music only deepened. The streets of District 6 had given him his first taste of performance, but he hungered for more. Driven by ambition and the desire to refine his skills, Talib made the bold decision to move to London. There, he immersed himself in classical guitar, studying rigorously and performing whenever he could. After years of disciplined study in London, Talib returned to South Africa in his early 20s, armed with skills that few of his peers possessed. He quickly made a name for himself in the local music scene, performing in musicals like Hair and Jesus Christ Superstar, where his charisma and talent shone on stage. But Talib wasn't content with simply performing. He wanted to create, to compose music that told stories of his homeland, its struggles, and its vibrant culture. In 1986, he met David Kramer, a fellow musician and playwright, and the two quickly formed a powerful creative partnership. Their collaboration brought Cape Town stories to life on stage, and together they produced musicals that would not only captivate local audiences, but also find acclaim internationally, on stages in London and even Broadway. By 1999, their work had earned them the Best New Musical Award for Cat and the Kings, solidifying Talib's reputation as one of South Africa's most gifted performers and composers. Amid this rising success, Talib's personal life began to intertwine with his professional world in ways that would later have profound consequences. In the late 1980s, while auditioning for one of his musicals, Talib met Madiha, a young woman whose path would soon become deeply entwined with his own. The two fell in love and spent a decade together before deciding to marry. Madiha converted to Islam to share in Talib's faith, and together they had 3 children. Despite the outward appearance of a loving family, cracks began to appear in their relationship in the late 1990s. Arguments became frequent, tensions at home escalated, and the couple eventually divorced. Yet even after their separation, Talib remained deeply committed to his children, sharing custody and maintaining a bond with Madiha. It was during this period of personal upheaval that another figure entered Talib Peterson's life, Najwa Dirk. Initially a family friend, Najwa's presence became increasingly significant, setting in motion a chain of events that would have devastating consequences. Najwa Dirk was born in the year 1962 in Cape Town, South Africa, into a family of considerable wealth. Her family owned a fruit distribution business, giving her access to financial resources and connections that would later play a role in her life. Despite the comforts of her upbringing, Najwa's early years were marked by challenges. She was reportedly a headstrong and determined child, navigating a household that combined opportunity with strict expectations. Over time, these experiences shaped her personality, ambitious, resourceful, and at times volatile. She later married and had two sons from that union, but that marriage ended in divorce. Najwa first entered Talib Peterson's life in the late 1980s when she attended auditions for one of his musicals. At the time, Talib was already a rising star in Cape Town's performing arts scene. Najwa, then recently separated from her first husband, found herself drawn into Talib's orbit. Their connection grew over the years. By the time Talib's marriage to his first wife, Madiha, ended in divorce, Najwa had become a familiar presence in his home. Over time, she moved in with him, bringing her two sons along, and eventually they married. Their life together, however, was far from stable. While Talib continued to flourish professionally, Najwa struggled with severe mental health issues, including bipolar disorder and depression. These challenges, combined with financial ambitions and personal tensions, would set the stage for the tragic events that followed. Talib, a devoted father, remained deeply connected to his children from his previous marriage, while Najwa struggled to adjust to the complexities of their blended family. Najwa got pregnant and had a daughter Zainab, and Talib doted on all of his children. He maintained a hands-on approach to parenting, trying to balance work, performances, and family responsibilities. Yet Najwa's behavior became increasingly unpredictable. Diagnosed with severe depression and bipolar disorder, she experienced periods of intense emotional instability. Talib tried to manage these challenges, overseeing her medication and attempting to maintain a sense of normalcy for the children. Despite his efforts, the home was filled with tension. Arguments became more frequent, and Najwa's controlling tendencies clashed with Talib's calm, measured approach. The marital discord, combined with Najwa's mental health struggles, created a volatile environment. By the mid-2000s, the tension in the household had reached a dangerous peak. Najwa began plotting Talib's murder with the intent of gaining control over his finances, particularly his life insurance policy and music royalties. She enlisted Wahid Hassan and Abdullah Injeti to carry out the killing, while Jefferson Snyders was involved in the robbery but not directly in the murder. Najwa coordinated the plan with precision, providing details about when Talib would be home, how the house should be accessed, and what each accomplice was supposed to do. Some participants believed they were only committing a robbery, while others knew the plan included murder. On the night of December 16, 2006, Talib Peterson left his mother's house in Athlone and made his way home. It should have been a quiet evening, but the house he returned to was already marked for betrayal. Najwa, his wife, had stayed behind, telling him she wasn't feeling well. The children were absent that night. They had been deliberately kept away, a decision that would later reveal just how calculated the plan truly was. As Talib entered his home, two men brought in under Najwa's instructions lay in wait. One carried a firearm, the other was prepared to restrain him. The act was staged to look like a robbery, but in truth it was a murder plot set in motion by someone he trusted most. Talib, taken by surprise, was quickly restrained. The men executed their plan, and in the chaos Talib was shot, kneeling in his own home, while his children were hidden safely elsewhere by Najwa's manipulation. It is important to note that some reports state that Talib returned home with Najwa after visiting his mother and was shot inside his home. However, other sources suggest he may have arrived alone, but Najwa was home when the intruders entered. It's important to note that the exact sequence of events is still debated, and not all details have been conclusively confirmed. What is clear, however, is that Najwa Peterson orchestrated the attack, coordinating the intruders and playing a central role in the murder. The aftermath was chilling. Najwa played the role of the distraught wife, even sedated by the family doctor, while police arrived to find Talib dead. It would take months of investigation and the confession of one accomplice, Fahim Hendricks, before Najwa's orchestration came fully to light. The investigation into Talib Peterson's murder was intense from the start. Police were under immense pressure, not only because of the high profile of the victim, but also because the crime had taken place inside a private home, where the killer had intimate knowledge of the family's routines. At first, Najwa maintained her act of the grieving wife, claiming masked intruders had broken in, robbed the house, and killed her husband. But officers immediately noticed inconsistencies. She had 2 cell phones on her, a strange detail that didn't match her story. Text and call logs on those phones showed frequent contact with Fahim Hendricks in the days surrounding the murder. Over 50 communications between them in just 5 days. Fahim became the key to unraveling the plot. Initially released due to lack of concrete evidence, he eventually cracked under pressure 6 months later, confessing everything. He revealed Najwa had planned the murder meticulously, recruiting accomplices, mapping the house, and ensuring Talib would be alone and vulnerable. This confession led to the arrest of Najwa, Fahim Hendricks, Wahid Hassan, and Abdullah Injeti. Each faced charges of murder and robbery, though the levels of involvement varied. Investigators pieced together the timeline of the night, the planning, and the chilling betrayal by Najwa, turning a tragic murder into a case of premeditated conspiracy that shook Cape Town to its core. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with anticipation. South Africa watched as the case of Talib Peterson's murder unfolded, every detail scrutinized, every witness held under the unforgiving glare of justice. The prosecution began by painting a chilling picture. Najwa Dirk, a woman who had once shared a life and children with Talib, meticulously planning his murder. An unbroken trail of communication that left little doubt about her orchestration. Fahim Hendricks eventually broke under the weight of the investigation. In his confession, he detailed how Najwa had orchestrated the attack, recruited accomplices, and timed every step with precision. The court listened as he described the cold efficiency of her planning, the way she exploited her knowledge of Talib's routines, and the way she manipulated those around her. The defense tried to argue that Najwa's mental health, her history of depression and bipolar disorder, should lessen her culpability. But the evidence was damning. Every act, every message, every calculated step revealed intent. The jury saw a woman not overtaken by illness, but driven by greed and obsession. Each accomplice's role was scrutinized. Abdullah Injeti and Wahid Hassan were shown as the armed perpetrators, executing the plan with deadly precision. Jefferson Snyders, who had limited knowledge, was involved in the robbery but unaware of the murder plot. The court meticulously traced Najwa's manipulation from her home, directing the violence like a puppeteer. When the verdicts were announced, they echoed through the courtroom like a final note in a tragic symphony. Najwa Dirk was sentenced to 28 years in prison for murder. Abdullah Injeti and Wahid Hassan received 24 years for murder and robbery. Jefferson Snyders was sentenced to 10 years for his role in the robbery. Justice had been served, but the story left a bitter aftertaste, a chilling reminder of how greed, manipulation, and betrayal could destroy a family and claim the life of one of South Africa's beloved artists. May his soul rest in peace. Our thoughts and deepest condolences go out to his children, family, and all who loved him. Do you believe mental health played a role in this tragedy? Could it have been prevented? Let me know what you think in the comments below. As we conclude the story, if you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next case. And if there's a story you think deserves to be told, especially one that's been buried or forgotten, drop it in the comments. We just might cover it next. Stay safe, take care. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.